going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal, Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and this is your TNA Unbreakable 2025 preview. Now, how do I tackle this show? The show is trying to be a lot of things all at once. First of all, it's a B-level TNA pay-per-view. We know what a B-level pay-per-view entails. May not necessarily be the most consequential pay-per-view in the world. These pay-per-views typically run on a Friday. This one's running on a Thursday. It's running right after their weekly episode of Impact, which is going to create an interesting dynamic because I'm pretty sure the Impact is pre-taped and then the pay-per-view goes live. Don't know how that's going to go. Shout out to guys like the Wrestling for Life Network who are trying to review 4 shows at once on that Thursday night. I will be joining Jake DeMarco over on his stream to review just this show. We won't be necessarily covering Bloodsport or AEW's propaganda or the actual episode of TNA Impact. We'll just be covering this show because it's pretty bite-sized. It's not a show on its own. They've been very vocal about, like, we're very proud that our show can be part of WrestleMania weekend, showing that nice, friendly, cordial WWE TNA relationship that we've seen bopping around. Apparently, one idea that was scrapped early on in the TNA WWE build was to have Joe Hendry go against The Miz, which I'm kind of bummed I didn't see it, but I'm also not heartbroken that it didn't happen because I'd love to see Joe Hendry come over in a much more consequential manner. And The Miz, much as I love him, much as I think he's really, really underappreciated, isn't doing much at the moment. So it's running at a really weird time. I think it's running at like 10 o'clock our time. The AEW bullshit show should be done. Impact will obviously be done. I don't know where Bloodsport falls into the mix. There is a noticeable lack of NXT participation in this show on the card, so I'm predicting there may be at least one surprise appearance on the night, cameo, if you will. And the other thing is, there's no other title matches on this show other than the tournament to crown the first ever TNA International Championship. For those of you that don't know, after the PCO debacle, after Steph DeLander presented PCO's belt to Mance Warner, it was scrapped. It was, de-prestigized by Santino Marella. They've created the TNA International Championship, and all the tournament matches to get to the final of this championship match have been triple threats to pay homage to a triple threat match that people still talk about to this day in TNA history, which was Styles versus Daniels versus Joe, which I think is a nice touch, and that happened to take place at Unbreakable, I think like 20 years ago, if I'm honest. So the whole show exists to create this one title. The whole show exists as a B pay-per-view. The whole show exists at a really odd time. The whole show exists to be one cog in the WrestleMania weekend wheel, and I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. But also, the whole show exists to build to TNA Rebellion, which is their next big pay-per-view, which is in only 2 weeks' time. So, in a really weird way, I have to start off with what does Rebellion look like so far before we get into this show, because I think this is a lot of preview type stuff. On the Rebellion card, we have an Ultimate X match for the TNA X Division Championship. It's Moose versus Casey Navarro versus Leon Slater's been killing it recently, by the way, versus the returning Matt Cardona, versus the returning El Hijo del Vikingo, which is awesome, versus one more participant to be announced. They've also got Elijah, the former Elias, versus a TBA. I don't know what the story is there, because I'm not as up-to-date as I should be. NXT's Fatal Influence is taking on Rosemary Zaya Brookside and Lei Ying Lee. I always fuck that name up, and it's not intentional. Speaking of Fatal Influence, those people that have randomly decided to muster up a movement to heap heat on Jasmine Nix, of all people, can fuck off. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Mike Santana versus Mustafa Ali is going to be fantastic. Santana needs to be in a world title picture this year. That's what I'm going to say about that. The Hardys versus the Nemeths is going to be a lot of fun. It's the Hardys and Dolph Ziggler You guys know that's going to be right up my street. Dolph Ziggler, now known as Nick Nemeth, finally getting the flowers that he should have gotten in WWE, to be fair. And the Hardy Boys are the Hardy Boys. Let's be real for a second. Ryan Nemeth is also there. I'm just not as invested in him as I am in his brother, which kind of feeds into his character anyway. Masha Slamovich versus Tessa Blanchard, which I'm sure will upset a lot of people that, you know, we don't like Tessa Blanchard, and yet she continues to live and have a job. Stop being weird. Much like the Jasmine Nix thing. Stop being weird. If you don't like somebody, don't watch them, but you not liking them doesn't mean they don't get to draw breath and draw a paycheck. Again, thanks for coming to my TED Talk Part 2. And the main event is going to be Joe Hendry defending his title against Frankie Kazarian, who has finally cashed in his Call Your Shot gauntlet, and the addition of NXT's Ethan Page, which I think is a lot of fun. And we have the conversation constantly since the NXT&A thing has become a thing, since Jordan Grace showed up on an NXT pay-per-view with NXT&A printed across her gear. We've had the conversation, because she faced Roxanne Perez at the time. We've had the conversation of who from what brand is going to take a title from another brand and who should it be and blah, blah, blah. Rebellion is a hell of a spot. Joe Hendry, Frankie Kazarian, Ethan Page. You can have Ethan Page do that in a triple threat scenario in a way that doesn't bury Joe Hendry. Again, there's rumors that Joe Hendry is eyeballing WWE in the long run, and apparently that's a bad thing according to Mud Show fans, but we're not going to go into that today. But it's a pretty good looking Rebellion in 2 weeks, and then I've got Under Siege that's coming here to Brampton in a couple months as well, so we'll see what we get when we get there. But now, that's what we've got on the horizon. This is what we've got to talk about tonight. Other than the tournament matches itself, which I'm going to talk about in a second, which is going to be a very quick conversation, quite frankly. We've got Mance Warner with Steph DeLander in his corner taking on Sami Callihan in a barbed wire massacre match. I'm not going to lie, my stance on Mance Warner hasn't really changed. I don't have the deep-rooted indie investment in him that a lot of other people do. That's not a dig at him. I don't think he's bad. It just, he doesn't grab me personally. Steph DeLander is interesting in the sense of, if you follow her on social media, she's been constantly responding to clips of the female competitors on LFG. Specifically, there was one bigger girl who was showing off her finisher, which is basically a pump handle into a tornado slam that made, you know, Booker go, whoa, and made Bully go, whoa, and made Undertaker go, whoa, and she responded with, man, damn, that's a big bitch. Can't wait to take that finisher someday. So is Steph DeLander maybe leaning towards either coming back to NXT or being the next TNA representative to show up on NXT? I wouldn't mind it. What was her name when she was with Indy Hartwell? Persia Parada. I don't know whether she'd go back to that name. I don't know whether she'd go do the JDC thing and come back when JDC came back to the Fandango music for one night and then said, by the way, I'm JDC. But she's more interesting and a bigger point of conversation to me than Mance Warner is, and that's a problem for TNA to solve. On the other side of the coin, though, it's a hardcore match, and it's Sami Callihan. I've had the pleasure of seeing Sami Callihan in person at Destiny. Check it out for Spaz Phoenix bucket list. It's fine. Also, shout out to Destiny and the people that run Destiny. I hope things are better with them and they can come off of hiatus soon, because I miss going to Destiny shows. But first and foremost, I hope everybody's doing okay. Shout out to Emilio Albi and his team over there. Sami Callihan's going to do Sami Callihan stuff. I saw Sami Callihan team with Josh Alexander to take on Mustache Mountain at a Destiny show. It was a lot of fun. They broke the barrier and landed in our laps because we were all sitting in the front row. It's absolutely fine. It was kind of funny as well because at that point, who was it? I think it was Trent Seven, came back, took a break from the match to like come talk to the people in the front row and make sure everybody was good. And we're like, yeah, we're fine. It's fine. Good dude, Trent Seven. I've met him more than once, and that's not the last time I'm going to say that in this video. You got one guy that I don't care about and one guy that I really enjoy. So, as a shocker to nobody, I'm going with Sami Callihan on this one. And the next two matches are matches to build matches. Joe Hendry and Masha Slamovich taking on Frankie Kazarian and Tessa Blanchard. You can't get away from this without people just, Tessa Blanchard has a job, therefore the match sucks. But she's pretty fucking awesome. She's playing off the heat fantastically well. I love the fact that she draws that specific kind of heat where she doesn't care about the heat, which makes the heat grow, which is a cyclical thing that's working in her favor. Masha Slamovich is awesome. I think she's a great champion. She's definitely at the forefront of, I want to see her cross over into NXT at some point and mix it up with somebody, be it Steph Delander, be it Julia, be it, I would say Jordynne Grace, but they did a lot with each other right on Jordynne Grace's exit, so you might not necessarily want to revisit that right away. Joe Hendry's Joe Hendry, and Kazarian is Kazarian. The problem with this is, it's either predictable, or if they don't do the predictable thing, I will think they've missed an opportunity, because Masha Slamovich is taking on Tessa Blanchard. That's a one-on-one match. This is a way to preview that match. Joe Hendry, Frankie Kazarian is there to preview the Joe Hendry, Frankie Kazarian, Ethan Page match. So Ethan Page is the odd person out. This is the most obvious opportunity for some NXT crossover, but it also makes sense in the context of we've got a match coming up. So I can see Ethan Page coming out, decking Joe Hendry, and because it's TNA, I could see Masha Slamovich getting pissed and mixing it up with Ethan Page, which would be a lot of fun, if nothing else. If not, like, have him show up on commentary or something to that effect. The heels are winning this to put both of the babyface champions behind the 8 ball for their respective championship defenses, I should say, at the bigger pay-per-view. I say it again, and it's feature, not bug, but this is very much a preview for the next show. It's been elevated by being part of WrestleMania weekend. I think it's an everybody wins thing across the board. Same thing goes with Mike Santana and the Hardys versus Mustafa Ali and the Nemeth brothers. Now, Mustafa Ali also has the great hands, and Tasha Steele's behind him. So this is really like a 5 or 6 on 3 scenario, but you've also got other people in the roster, probably there on the night, looking at somebody like a Leon Slater who will have the Hardys back and want answers / retribution for the sudden turn of Nick Nemeth, so they might find themselves with backup on their side as well. Once again, I got to go with the heels are going to win this. It's going to be all wonder and sorrow going into the big pay-per-view, where I don't necessarily think the Hardys are going to win, but Mike Santana's going to win over Mustafa Ali. The Mike Santana-Mustafa Ali stuff, I've seen the conversation online where they think it's hitting a little too close to the bone, not only with Mike Santana's former substance abuse issues, but also Mike Santana bringing in a friend from rehab and then having that friend from rehab abused by Mustafa Ali and his crew. A little too close to the bone, a little too like, hey, here's a person that's not a wrestler, they're just a person with problems, let's pick on them. The people that are saying that's a little too close to the bone, a little far across the line, whatever, I see where you're coming from, and I agree to an extent. I'm not offended by it as much as some people are, but then again, I'm not in those scenarios, so there is a certain amount of I shouldn't really be speaking to those issues at the same time. This is why I'm sure that it's going to come good on the night, with Mike Santana going over Mustafa Ali, but that's another preview for another time. As a 6-person tag, this is going to be a lot of fun. As a 6-person tag, there's a lot of WWE influence on this, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you had said, take Santana and Ryan Nemeth out of it, and you would have the Hardys versus Mustafa Ali and Dolph Ziggler. And if we had gotten that in WWE, I don't think anybody would have complained, except the people that just make money grifting on pretending to hate WWE. But we don't need to talk about them, because, as Triple H told us recently, the internet isn't real, and the people that got really offended by that are the people on the internet that want to put their hand up in the air and say, look at me, I'm real. And then they make me laugh. Now, the tournament final for the TNA International Championship is AJ Francis versus TBD and TBD. Now, that's because 2 of the 3 semifinals are also taking place on the pay-per-view card. You got Eddie Edwards, Ace Austin, Steve Macklin. You've got Zachary Wentz, JDC, and Eric Young. Now, process of elimination here. Eddie Edwards is just going to bring more gold to the system, and we don't need that. Steve Macklin, I'm pretty sure, is going to get screwed over by the Northern Armory. As I say, I haven't seen the last 2 weeks of TNA, so maybe he's on their side at this point. I really don't know. So I can see a situation where Steve Macklin gets screwed over by the Northern Armory, and then Eric Young falls victim to the revenge of Steve Macklin, depending on what order they do these matches in. I'm trying to think. Steve Macklin and Eric Young are going to take themselves out of their respective matches. People who are sick of the system are going to take out JDC and Eddie Edwards. Not that I have anything against those guys, but the system needs to crash. Which, I mean, if you look at who I like and who I follow in the process of elimination that I'm going through here, I really like AJ Francis. He was the first one to win his qualifying match, and he's a great heel on TV, and he's a really good dude in real life. Another guy that I've had the chance to actually meet. He's really nice. It's another one of those, like the personal concierge is actually George Iceman, who used to run Destiny. Check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list. It's fine. And I've told him to his face, it's hilarious to watch you be a dickhead on TV because I know you're such a nice guy. I think AJ Francis kind of falls into that same category, especially when you hear about his activities off screen with, social stuff and fundraising and community outreach endeavors. He's the bad guy you want to cheer for because you know he's a good dude in real life. So he's a great base for smaller guys, high-flying guys. So have the other two contenders in that match be Zachary Wentz and Ace Austin. So if you go with AJ Francis, Zachary Wentz, Ace Austin, as much as I love Zachary Wentz and as much as it was cool to see him with the X Division title for like 5 seconds and bring that over to an NXT show, I'd love to see it on Ace Austin. Ace Austin said he was going to be a world champion in respect, in dedication to Chris Bay, who's still on the recovery thing, obviously. He didn't become the world champion. He's been X Division champion before. So if you can't be the champion, be the first champion. I'm picking Ace Austin out of all the 7 people that are here, because AJ Francis, as I said, has already qualified. You've got AJ Francis, Zachary Wentz, JDC, Eric Young, Steve Macklin, Eddie Edwards, and Ace Austin. So if you throw them all into a tumbler and say, who do I want to win? Who do I want to be the first TNA International Champion? I'm going with Ace Austin, who will probably get a pat on the back at the end of the day by Zachary Wentz, by Trey Miguel, by... If they have Chris Bay there, like if he's just there on the apron or whatever to give his buddy a hug, very much like when Tommaso Ciampa went down with injury and then Gargano won the title and Ciampa showed up on the ramp at the end to give his buddy a hug and all that. If they are able to do a moment like that with Chris Bay, because we know he's still on the healing track and you see what he's done on social media and whatever, I would love for Ace Austin for him to be able to do that in dedication of his friend. I think that's a tremendous story to tell. Everything else is just, if it's JDC, I brought it back to the system. If it's Eddie Edwards, I brought it back to the system. If it's Zachary Wentz, you've got a singles title, but then what do the Rascals do? Because I don't think necessarily Trey Miguel is going to go off and do another singles run. He could. Steve Macklin, Eric Young. Eric Young could just say, oh, look, I'm a great leader of the Northern Armory. Why don't you guys follow in my footsteps? Go get the tag team titles from the Hardys. And if it's Steve Macklin, then it's just going to be, okay, Steve Macklin gets targeted by the Northern Armory so that Eric Young can get the title eventually. I think it's WrestleMania season. Everything's a bit bigger. Everybody wants to feel good about stuff. End it on Ace Austin being your first ever international champion. And I think everybody wins. I think everybody goes home happy. And I think everybody, to borrow a Simon Miller phrase, can go happy with warm and fuzzy feelings in their tum-tum. Anyways, as I said, not a huge groundbreaking show, but a mildly historical show and a great precursor to what I'm presuming is going to be a fantastic proper show with Rebellion in just 2 weeks. I hope you guys are setting yourselves up for a great WrestleMania week. There's going to be lots of stuff coming. Jake and I are still going to do previews for WrestleMania and Stand and Deliver Oi Oi Oi. We've done some group streams with some great people like GUAPO, like Judgment Day Era, like the formerly known as OK Fabe. Those are already available on the channel. Now, Jake is going to be streaming reviews all week. Go go check him out. Our friends over at the Wrestling for Life Network are doing watch-alongs for damn near everything, so please go check them out as well. In both cases, tell them Spaz sent you. It'll be good. It'll give everybody a chuckle. But this has been your TNA Unbreakable 2025 preview. I've been Spaz, your YWC reality check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.